I welcome you on behalf of the NYU Abu Dhabi Institute on the occasion of the Christo and Jeanne-Claude Distinguished Lecture. We are greatly honored by the presence of Christo himself. Who will talk to us about especially his new project, Over the River. This exciting new project that he and his wife Jeanne-Claude have planned for years is close to being realized. It consists of 5.9 miles of a silver-colored fabric that is to be suspended over and along a 42-mile stretch of the Arkansas River in Colorado in the United States. Christo will talk about this new work, the vision underpinning it, the technical, environmental, social, and bureaucratic challenges he has to overcome, and the installation process that is, mind you, going to take for about 2 years. And that in the context of his other work. As I've discovered over the last couple of days, during which he has engaged NYU Abu Dhabi students in a personal screening of the film Gates, which documents the installation of his famous work in the New York Central Park in 2005, that Christo actually is the most meticulous historian of the artist's work. Christo himself. He is able to record in conversation and exposition the technical details, the data regarding materials he used, the time span, some decades it took to materialize a work, the year, the month, the number of days an installation lasted, and that of each individual work. The days have passed that the running fence and the valley curtain in California, the wrapped coast in Australia, the wrapped Pont Neuf in Paris, the Reichstag in Berlin, and the umbrella project in Japan and California, and the gates in New York attracted literally millions of visitors. While temporary installations, they still live on in the passionate memory of the artist himself. Christo writes history by wrapping history. Some of the projects of Christo and Jeanne-Claude are still to be realized, such as the Mastaba project in Liba. But even in their as yet unrealized form, they are already part of the modern canon of artistic endeavor, achievement, beauty, and consolation. Ladies and gentlemen, let us warmly greet our speaker of tonight's distinguished lecture, Christo.
We do very shortly. I will go down to show you color slides presentation of 80 color slides, real color slides, not DVD or computer images. We have this special xenon projector flown from London to give you the greater quality of emulsion film, how it's in the screen. But before everything, I can tell you that I miss very much Jeanne-Claude. Jeanne-Claude was much better introduction than me, and we miss all the time with the things he can say. I try to remember all the time what I should say before the lecture. One important thing Jeanne-Claude was saying, Jeanne-Claude and myself were born on June 13, 1935, but we were by two different mothers. I remember, she's a French, I remember often she was saying, we're ménage à quatre, because we are born in the month of twins, and there will always two Christo, two Jeanne-Claude, and we can fight all the time. This is why ménage à quatre. Now, I met Jeanne-Claude in 1958 in Paris. We lived in Paris between 1958 and 64. We have little boy Cyril born in Paris, and we immigrated to the United States in 1964. Jeanne-Claude, no, we not immigrated to the United States in 1964. We immigrated to Manhattan, New York City in 1964. And she was very proud of that. She was insisting the whole time to say that between 1964 and 1967, we was 3 years illegal aliens in Manhattan. We come tourists and we disappear in the crowd. Only many months, a year later, we became a resident. After the course slide presentation, I will answer many questions. But one important thing, I will not talk about politics, religion, not generality. It's certainly not about other artists. We only talk about ourselves. I am 76 years old, and I have a few years more still to talk about myself. Thank you. In 1991, we're finishing the project, the Umbrellas, joint project for Japan and United States. There was a 1,340 blue umbrellas in Japan and 1,760 yellow umbrellas in Southern California. Each umbrella was 6 meters high, 9 meters diameter, 640 square feet surface. The length of the project in Japan was 19 kilometers long and 2.5 kilometers wide. In Japan, we have a 90 umbrellas standing in the Sato River. The length of the project in California was 26 kilometers long and 2.5 kilometers wide. And when this umbrella was standing in 1991, in October, in Japan and California, we received a letter from Germany. Many years ago, before we have idea about the umbrellas, in 1971, we proposed to wrap the parliament, the former parliament of Germany, the Reichstag, and today the parliament of Germany. That project was refused, permission was refused in 1977, 1981, and 1987. And when the umbrella was standing in Japan and California, we received a letter from the president, the speaker of the House of German Parliament, Professor Dr. Rita Susmuth, congratulating us for the umbrellas, but she was saying also they had a chance to start again negotiating the permission for the Reichstag. But we already have idea about the new project. And I will show here the very early drawings about the over the river. Even the title was wrong. You see, called the river. This little drawings is only the letter size drawings. It's suspended horizontally fabric panels way above the water. You can see the project from above. I glue a little person here. And when we get down to the river, can experience the project from underneath. Now, these two little drawings, they're in a collection in the Museum in Washington, the National Gallery in Washington, D.C., who they have the biggest collector of original works by us. The National Gallery of Washington owns over 60 original works of us in different periods. But the chances to get the permission for the Reichstag was so greater. This is between 1992 and 1994. We spent 180 days in the city of Bonn, then the capital of Germany, negotiating the 660 deputies of the German parliament, try to convince them to agree to wrapping of the Reichstag. Only during the summertime, when the deputy of the parliament on the holidays, we have a time for over the river. Jean-Claude have enough of the city of Bonn and cities, and we was eager to do that project in the United States. And the summer of 92, 93, and 94, we scout the Rocky Mountains in the United States. You know, all the great rivers in the United States, they are born from the Rocky Mountains. Some of the rivers go east to Mississippi River, Gulf of Mexico. Some of the rivers go west to the Pacific Ocean. From these 89 rivers in the state of Idaho, Colorado, New Mexico, and Wyoming, we come to 6 possible sites for our project. There was the 2 rivers in Idaho, 1 river in Wyoming, Wind River. There was the 2 rivers in the state of Colorado, Cache La Poudre and Arkansas River, and section of Rio Grande of New Mexico. And our friend Wolfgang was traveling with us. Wolf, we take photographs, and this is very early sketches. I start to using the photograph of Wolfgang to simulate how the project will look. But in February of 1994, we get the permission for the Reichstag, and we put our resources, energy, wisdom, and money and to realize the Reichstag. And July 1995, the Reichstag was wrapped with 100,000 square meters of this silver fabric and around 15 kilometers of ropes. And for 14 days, over 5 million people came to see the Reichstag. After 14 days of exhibition, and you see up there is Brandenburg Gate. After 14 days of exhibition, all the fabric was removed, the ropes were removed, a lot of steel material, but all the material was industrially recycled and returned back to New York City. and try to revive the permission for the project we started in 79 called the Gates, who was refused by the mayor of Koch of New York in 1981, but Mr. Giuliani that time was absolutely against the project. We don't have yet site for over the river. In the summer of 1996, our team, a greater number, our chief engineer here in the middle, Jeanne-Claude is here on the right side, myself, we try to take a lot of information about all this condition of the banks of the river for all the sites we were having in mind. For example, here, our chief engineer, Vince Dapperwall, designed that little system. It's the pulley system who gives us the distance from the steel cable, who is the yellow rope. Yellow rope simulated the steel cable of our fabric panel, that we need to have a minimum 2.5 meter distance from the water clearance, and to record that for all different rivers and of all the 6 rivers. For example, you can see here 6 yellow rope created, three yellow rope created the place of 2 fabric panels, and we take a lot of information of the condition of the banks of the river, the high banks of the river. By the late 96, early 97, we come to consensus that Arkansas River in the state of Colorado is most suitable for our project. Now, up there is Denver, the capital of Colorado, the second largest city in Colorado, Colorado Springs, and 62 kilometers of Arkansas River. We like to install 10 kilometers of fabric panels in 8 different locations. One of the reasons we choose Arkansas River is because it's really the most rafted river in the United States. You see, they have a gentle rafting. They have about 300,000 rafters coming down in the summertime. On the south bank of the river, you have the United States Highway number 50, and the north bank of the river, you have Union Pacific Railroad tracks. Now, with having this relocation, I start to preparing preparatory study drawings with the real sites. I will show here the collage, who is the study in 2 parts. The life site is the 77 centimeter by 57 centimeter. The second part is 77 centimeter by 30 centimeter. Now, the left side is done with finer cloth to simulate our fabric panels. Typical interruption when you have a cloud tree formation, and you have the interruption. I use the twine to simulate the thick cables to control the diagonal cable of the fabric panels. When you go down to the river, you have absolutely different view of the project. This is a large drawing, almost the size of that color slice, I think so, 2.5 meters. And the fabric we use is heavy woven polypropylene, loosely woven, and through the fabric, you can see the cloud formation and the contour of the mountains. Now, the fabric will be only above the water, meaning that the width of the fabric varied with the width of the water from 15 meter wide to 50 meter wide, is attached to steel cables who go much further away, sometimes to 50 to 80 meters anchor on the banks of the river. Because the banks of the river, they're not all the same height, very often the fabric panel, they're not horizontal, one side is higher than the other. The minimum distance from the water to the fabric panels is 2.5 meters, but on some occasion, the fabric panels, they're much higher, 4, 5, 6 meters. With all our projects, the most difficult part is to get permission. Everything in the world is owned by somebody and belongs to somebody. And we find very fast that entire 62 kilometers of Arkansas River is owned by the United States federal government, and they have a special ministry of Washington. It's called Ministry of Interior. It's not the police. Ministry of Interior of Washington is in charge of the forest, the river, the mountains, and is one of the most lucrative ministries in the United States because they rent the land. They rent the land to oil company, to mining company, building airport, highway, bridges, dam. Is incredible, big, powerful industry, ministry. But before even go to Washington, we need to introduce the project to community who live there. there are two cities, one an eastern end, another an western end. Actually, I should say that before everything is that the river is the very high altitude. The east entrance of the river near the canyon city of the east entrance is an 1,800 meter altitude, and the west entrance of the city near town of Salida is about 2,200 meter high altitude. Now we are here presenting the project to senior city center and the town of Salida. On the wall, there are some photographs of realized project. And myself and Jean-Claude try to introduce to these people, mostly, I always say, I hope you understand, they're senior citizen hippies who arrived there in the late 60s to settle in the Colorado mountains. And we tell what we did, who we are, because they don't have an idea what we are. We tell them, for example, that in 1969, we wrapped coastline in Australia outside of Sydney, 150,000 square meters of fabric, about 30 kilometers of ropes. In 1972, we did valley curtain in the western slope of the Rocky Mountains, Colorado. In the center, this is the 80-meter high curtain and 160 meter in the main foundation. And between 1972 and 76, we work in Northern California, and we realized this running fence. This is big, long running fence, 5.5 meter high, running to the hills of Sonoma and Marin County, north of San Francisco, and disappearing in Pacific Ocean for 300 meters. And in 1978, we realized the wrap walkway. We covered with golden fabric the 4.5 kilometer walkway on Lewis Park in Kansas City, Missouri. In 1983, we finished the surrounded island. This is Project Jean-Claude idea. We surrounded 11 islands with 650,000 square meters of floating pink fabric. And finally, after 10 years working and two refusals, we get the permission, and in 1985, we wrapped the oldest bridge in Paris, the Pont Neuf, with this champagne color fabric. From Salida, who is the west entrance of the project, we're going to the east entrance of the project in Canyon City, and we're presenting the project here to community there. You see, our team is in the left side, and all the official federal government, the police, security, different agencies on the right side. Finally, this is all happened in the late 90s. We go to Washington during the Clinton administration, and this is another, many presentations like tonight, we did it before we go to Washington. We go, we're presenting the project, and after that, myself on the left side, Junita Davenport, our project, Jean-Claude with the red hair, and Vince Davenport, our chief engineer, answer questions. Gathering like that, town hall meetings, we did countless in the valley and around United States. And after that, we arrived in Washington here. We're presenting the project to the Deputy Minister of Interior, explaining the project and the Clinton administration. You know, the process to get the permission is intricate. We need to find all the data. We need to put it in our permitting paper to the federal government. This is why we hired the services of the engineering company outside of Toronto, Canada, one of the greatest engineers of wind to perform wind tunnel tests. Now, this is the 3 fabric panels on 1/16 scale, we're behind the glass. This is Jean-Claude there on the left side, and our engineers recorded all the force of the wind and the cables and the anchors in the fabric, variety of things. All that was done in that process. Now, here also give you the idea that I was saying that we cannot decide the fabric in the studio in New York. This is why in 97, 98, in the private ranch, far away from the site, we have live site tests. We're in the compound there, and we fabricated several fabric panels and 1-to-1 scale, differently sewn fabric, differently folded fabric, differently grommets and hooks, all kind of things to perform it and to see how the fabric works. For example, you see how the fabric panel move with the wind. Some of the fabric panel was more silver, other was silver and copper. It's not really the silver color. We pulverize the fabric with a million goods of aluminum, and the first panels, sometimes mixing aluminium with silver to finalize what is the most exquisite and most preferable quality of fabric Jeanne-Claude and myself we have. But when you go down under, it's totally different vision. You see through the fabric, you can see the cloud formation and contour of the mountains. I will show here the scale of this project, Jeanne-Claude standing here, there, and all that test was done in the late 90s. Also, and finally in 2000, we need to pinpoint exactly where these 8 areas in the project. With our engineers, we traveled to this 62 kilometers area, and I will show you how it was important to precisely position where the fabric panel. This is a small section. We have the fabric panels will be always rectangular. The red line is our steel cables, and when the river turns, we need to fabricate these especially trapezoid fabric panels and typical interruption when you have a bridge. This basically, we need to fabricate over 1,000 fabric panels, all custom made for particular location. All that costs a lot of money. Myself and Jeanne-Claude were not independently wealthy, and the money came from the sale of original work of art I do with my own hand. I do not have assistant. Every original work is done by my own hand. Now, I will show you a section of my studio. For over 40 years, I have no time to clean my studio. Here, I'm much younger, I have a dark hair. This is during the Reichstag time. I am doing the study, the small study, and that table. All these small works, letter size or a little bigger, often I glue the variety of elements of photography or sample of fabric or technical data, and they are called collages. That is the French word of gluing things. And this is when the work is finished looking like that. Now, this is the work of 76 centimeter by 56 centimeter and 76 by 28 centimeters. Now, the left side is done with a cloth simulated the fabric of the Pont Neuf, much finer cloth. The twine simulates the rope of the Pont Neuf. I use pastel, charcoal, wax crayon, and to draw the area of the buildings and behind the Wrapped Pont Neuf. This is the diptych, and the right side you have aerial photography of Paris with location of the Pont Neuf, and reproduction of the architect drawings of Desmarchand and Desserceaux who designed the Pont Neuf. That particular preparatory study is in the collection in Belgium. This is another preparatory study for the Gates project, the same sites, much more closer to the final realization of the Gates, I think in 2003, because upper side you have also the real cloth, real fabric we use for the fabric panels of the Gates. The lower part, I use finer fabric to simulate the fabric of our gates and cut out the board of paper, create the folds, and that is in the collection in Germany. I use very often the photography of Wolfgang Wolf, that this is very small. It's like a letter size. Wolfie take the pictures, and over that photography I draw with wax crayon and enamel paint, and often this little sketch is preparatory study for the large drawings. You see the red lines. This is the grid I put in the photography to do that. I will show another part of my studio, not very glamorous, where I'm doing a study drawings for the Reichstag. And the left side is a little sketch of that type of preparatory study, and I'm making drawings of the Reichstag. And here, how that drawings look. It's about 1.65 m wide drawings by 1 meter. Upper part, you have a cross-section of the Reichstag building with photograph of Wolfie, of Brandenburg Gates, and the Reichstag, from the mid-70s. That is in the drawing, the collection in Berlin. This is another large drawings, 2.5 meter drawings for the blue umbrellas. We done pastel, charcoal, wax crayon, and on the left side you have the map of state of the Ibaraki Valley, when we have 1,340 dots, and that small village of Jimba, very north part of the project, we install. You have only about 30 houses. We install over 100 umbrellas at the height of 2-story houses. Now, from the top floor on our building, who is my studio, we bring these original works to the second floor, who is the place where really Jeanne-Claude and myself sell these original works of art to collectors, dealers, and museums around the world. And you know what's happened? The collectors, dealers come, they choose the work, they give us money, and they take the work. This is how we have money for this project. I hope you understand. There is no other mystery. Sometimes the collectors or museum like to choose some early works. I will show you a work here from 1961 called Package. It's a little smaller work. It's a wall piece looking exactly like that. And that piece is in the collection of the National Gallery in Washington, D.C., the biggest museum collector of us in the United States. Between 1963 and 67, I did a number of sculpture by using storefronts. When the storefront is demolished by building a new house, I recuperate the door, the show window of that storefront, and rebuilding that storefront inside of the room like a sculpture. Here's the particular sculpture of storefront of 1964. When you have a glass, you cannot see what is behind the glass. You have a door, you cannot open the door. That sculpture is in Smithsonian Museum, the Herschel collection in Washington, D.C. This type of work, preparatory works, there are some precursor for the later pieces. For example, this is precursor of the running fence, so valley curtain, when you have this vertical fabric panel hanging in the space. And that period, and early, like in the late 50s, I started to use oil barrels. Very simple. That is sculpture of 1958, 59, when I used some existing oil barrels, like this red and white, and some of the barrels was wrapped with fabric, was treated with enamel and wax. And that is the sculpture done in 1958 to 59. This is another sculpture a little later done. It belongs to the museum, actually one of the greatest museums in Europe, called Kaiser Kroller Rijksmuseum, Kroller Müller in Holland, Netherlands, who have one of the greatest amount of original works of art. And that is the large sculptural garden in the Rijksmuseum Kroller Müller in Holland. Stacking also horizontally barrels. I did it with Jeanne-Claude. This is the second collaboration, myself with Jeanne-Claude, in 1962. In 1961, Berlin Wall was built. I remember myself and Jeanne-Claude was in Cologne, Germany, having our first personal exhibition. I, political refugee, I was scared to death. And in September of 1961, we proposed to build our Iron Curtain, to propose to block small street, Rue Visconti, in Paris with 100 oil barrels. And that was realized in 1962, in June of 1962. And that period also, I did that small sculpture, who is already precursor of the Mastaba we like to do. Now, when you stack horizontally, this is sculpture in museum in Italy. When you stack, this is again ready-made barrels with different colors. When you stack these barrels horizontally, the angles is always 60 degrees. And it can be any cylindrical object. It can be barrels, pencils, tin cans. And this is how idea come to finally to arrive to the Mastaba. In the late 60s, a collector of ours living in Houston, we were planning to install the Texas Mastaba, and I will show here the sketch, much smaller size than the Mastaba for United Arab Emirates, with oil barrels, but the project go nowhere, and we never start to move the project ahead. Early 70s, we proposed to do the Mastaba again in Rijksmuseum Kroller Müller parking area. You see the much smaller site, but also the project not go ahead. During that time, in 1970, we became close friends with the French ambassador to United Nations, Monsieur de Guéringaud. Monsieur de Guéringaud became a collector. He bought a number of original work for us. And Monsieur de Guéringaud was telling us, to me, Jean-Claude, that only place to do that, chance to do that project is the small country that just became independent. It's called United Arab Emirates. Mr. de Guéringaud became the foreign minister of President Giscard d'Estaing. When Mr. de Guéringaud became foreign minister, President Giscard d'Estaing, he was the gentleman. He succeeded, he organized our arrival in Abu Dhabi in 1979. I will show here a photograph of what's his proposal for the Mastaba of Abu Dhabi. Before we arrive even here, we make drawings and collages to show how the project will be. Basically, we're stacking horizontally oil barrels. You have a little diagrams here. And structure who will build with these 410,000 oil barrels will be 150 meters high, the vertical wall, 300 meters on the ground, and the slammed the boa 225 meters. This is the model. We did it in 1979. The vertical wall approaching, when approaching the vertical wall, you will see more and more how these multicoral barrels, this is the actually model, large-scale model was done. Here's another view. These barrels became like an abstract, almost pointillistic painting or Islamic mosaic, blending and became a visual, exciting view when the slanted wall is more monolithic, monochromic color, orange-yellow. Here, for example, is using that photograph to make a photo montage, and here how it will look the vertical wall in the scale relation of this 150 meters. 90, you see our first visit in Abu Dhabi. Mr. Guisset, the French ambassador on the right side, myself, Ted Doherty, our engineer from America, and Jeanne-Claude. And from there, Jeanne-Claude and myself, we spent a lot of time in the desert and in the Sundin and Abu Dhabi, here near a line, here looking for the site of the Mastaba, here Ted Doherty, our chief engineer, and myself, near near the building of Dubai, of the Jebel Ali. Here, it was very important that the sand of the scale model will be the sand of Abu Dhabi. We're collecting the sand of Abu Dhabi. Here's another picture talking to the friends we met in the area, and that area here, Jeanne-Claude with friends, and here Jeanne-Claude in the desert near Liva. And finally, again that picture. We have a friend, Japanese fashion designer, who was so hot here, Issei Miyake. Issei Miyake supplies with the dress that Jean-Claude having during that time. And this is the drawing, much more recent drawing in Abu Dhabi. In 1999, in Museum of Germany, Oberhausen, just outside of Düsseldorf, we built a wall of 13,000 oil barrels. This is actually inside in the atrium of the museum. It was 66 meters wide, 21 meters high, is 7 meters depth. Now, many years before that was developing, in 1966, 68, 69, we like to wrap the tree of Avenue of we like to wrap the 1966. We tried to wrap the tree of Forest Park at St. Louis, Missouri. We never get permission. We tried to wrap the trees of Avenue of Champs-Élysées in Paris. We never get permission. And finally, we worked very hard between 1997, 98. We get permission to wrap 178 trees on Berover Park and Fondation Baylor, just outside of Basel, Switzerland. We have a sunny days, we have a winters, this is the color picture, and we have a beautiful sunset. We were telling you that the gas project was refused in 1981, but in 2001, a friend of ours was elected mayor of New York City, Michael R. Bloomberg. When Mr. Bloomberg was elected mayor of New York City, we put our resource, energy, money, everything to get the permission, and finally, in 2005, we installed the 7,503 gates over 37 kilometers of walkway in Central Park. Each gate was 6 meters high and varied from 3 meters to 6 meters. And we have a sunny day, we have a winter, and these 16 days in February of 2005, and we have a view from above section of the Central Park in south of Manhattan. After 16 days of exhibition, all the material was removed and recycled and returned work in the Over the River project and the Mastaba. I can show here the picture, Jean-Claude and myself, Jean-Claude and our nephew, Vladimir, and the site where we like to do the Mastaba near Liva. At the same time, we need to move the project of Over the River ahead. You know, you cannot write letter to the federal government, ask him to give you permission. We need to hire a special company who worked 1.5 years producing 2,029-page book called Planning in Design Report, submitted to federal government, cost us $1.5 million. And the federal government used that, our finding, our presentation, or our findings, the explanation, to evaluate if we get the permission for the project and if we not get permission for the project. We need to demonstrate also to federal government what kind of machinery we use. For example, we need to drill thousands of anchors with this hydraulically about 7 meter depth underground. And after another 2.5 years work and over $2.5 million expense, and our expense, the federal government released final environmental impact statement. This is 1,686 pages. That statement was released last July, was 60 days review by the people from around the world with comments, and very happy. And November 8th, the federal government say yes. And I will show you another drawings collage from under and another collage from above, when typically you see the fabric panel, they incline. And now we can put the lights. Thank you. Now, you understand. One great, sorry, Jeanne-Claude is here because not here, but she will be enjoying that, because this is one great happiness for me and Jeanne-Claude, that we're here just week after we get permission for the Reichstag, over the river. This is exceptional. We fly, actually literally flew the next day from Washington here. And be courageous. You ask any question, and I try to explain with my awkward English. You know, I'm Bulgarian. I never learned proper English. I don't even speak in proper French, but I try to manage to communicate.
If you had designed the gates in the summer, would you have designed it differently?
You know, all our projects, they're season project. They designed for particular season of the year. And you know very well that the Gates project was particularly designed for winter, because we like to have a leafless tree. To the leafless tree, you can see the Central Park, you can see the other gates, especially you can see the buildings around the Central Park. During the summertime, Central Park is like a forest. You cannot see far away the gates. The same thing with surrounded island, the Pink Islands in Florida was the spring project before the hurricane in Miami came in late in the summer and autumn. You know, and of course, the over the river is the summer project, because we like to have the rafters. The rafting season is between June to the end of August. You know, this is how this project they designed it. They designed it when that space is used and aesthetically more beneficial for us.
What motivated you to first start these big-scale projects, and how do you feel when every time you finish a project?
I'll start with the second question.
Okay.
You know, you should see that all these projects, they're unique for themselves. We will never build another gates. We will never surround other islands, build another umbrellas. They're unique, never happen. And it's so exciting to project something finally can be realized. And when this project be realized, myself and Jeanne-Claude would like to devote all our time to enjoying the work of art. Basically, we say to our friends, we don't like to see you during the daytime. We like to be, Jeanne-Claude was saying, with our babies all over. We spend days and days walking in the hills in California to install the umbrellas. We like to go to each place. We spend days and days to work in the Valley Curtain or Rennick Fence. And this is the relation. We are so excited, and also these very precious 14 days. But in the same way, you know, no drawings of mine or sketches or collages can really participate or describe how the real work do. I will show you here color slides, who is the static, still images. But all our project was like living object. They're moving with the wind. They're extremely dynamic. They're very sensual. And they're impossible to even expected how we reacted. I'll give you a little example. We wrapped the Reichstag with fabric. And the actually wrapping was done by rock climbers who literally unfurled the fabric, and with their ropes, they're designing, connecting the fabric, putting the ropes around the Reichstag. During that process, we take about a week, we built see-through working fence that the Berliner, the public can see the action in the project. And after that, we removed the fence, and thousands, a million people was walking around the Reichstag, and the people was touching the fabric like that, pulling the fabric. You don't see people in Abu Dhabi touching the buildings. This is why this project, they're very special things. They're very invitational. They're very provocative. You can break the fabric and can go inside, going beyond. All these things, they belong to the object who is happened.
What is the scale of the project?
Why?
How did you get an idea for the scale of the project?
What?
The scale of the project.
The scale, okay. That is the other question. No, I try to find some object I like to find some object to describe the normal painting is like that surface, very flat. Can be realistic, can be abstract, is the flat surface. The normal sculpture, thank you, Wolfie, is like that camera, and of course, the sculpture with his hand, the surfaces, and that great Swiss-French sculptor, Giacometti, who make very skinny people, they became very skinny one side when it's profile, but they go around, they change. And sometimes the sculpture can do the larger pieces, like Alexander Calder, when you walk inside a sculpture, literally, because the shape is cut out. But all that space is designed by the artist. Every little element is designed artist how should be done. Today, contemporary art, also they're using television sets, object, but all that relation is entirely designed by the artist. There's another space who think very little about. The moment you go out of the street, somebody designed the walkway. You walk in this walkway. You take your car, you drive the car, you have a red, a green light, somebody designed the space. Actually, 24 hours around the clock, we highly move it to regulated space, designed by urbanists with all kind of regulation. We're even not thinking about that. Now, what we do, Jean-Claude and myself, we borrow that space and create gentle disturbance for a few days. By borrowing that space, we inherit everything what is inherent to that space to become part of the work of art. We do not invent the politics in the Reichstag. Was in the Reichstag. We don't invent ecology in Biscayne Bay, Florida. Was in Biscayne Bay. Now understand what I'm talking. That is very different between the real things. I'll show you the photograph of the Wrapped Reichstag. You can see drawings of the Wrapped Reichstag. You can see a film about the Wrapped Reichstag. But for 14 days, in 1995 was the Reichstag Wrapped, the real things. Not illustration, is the real things, the real valley, the real river, the real things. And of course, the project carries this dimension who is not applied normally in art. This is why we like to do this project.
Thank you. I would want to know, was there any project that you've done to a certain place and you first chose the place and then build the project, or most of your projects were done by choosing, I don't know, the barrels and then finding a place where they were suitable, or thinking about the river project and then choosing a river?
I understand the question. Okay. Now, there are two ways. First, some of our projects, they are urban space, like a city. Some of our projects, they are in a rural space, but always a space where the people live. We never do project in the wilderness. We need to have a, why? Not because for the construction or making purposes, because also for the aesthetic purposes, for the scale. We cannot do project if we don't have a house, telephone pole, bridge to relate how wide is the project, how tall is the project, all the variety of things. And some project, for example, like the Reichstag, we know where is the Reichstag. We don't go to find the Reichstag. It's designed for the Reichstag. The same things like the Central Park project was designed for Central Park, or the Pont Neuf project, or the surrounded island. This project was designed for that particular space. But sometimes we have idea. over the river, the running fence, the umbrellas. The idea is there, and we always scout to find the idea. And of course, we choosing area where we like to build, but always we need to have at least 1 or 2 or 3, the best and the second best to available. In the case of over the river is exactly that. We need to go to all these 6 rivers after investigating 89 rivers, having this 6th river and finalize that Arkansas River was most suitable for our project. And that is the idea you see very much, and these earliest drawings and sketches, and even the title we need to change. We always try to give a very descriptive title of our project that don't mislead the people through the permitting process. The river was too abstract. We need to tell it over the river, that is something over the river. To be extremely described, it not people think is something less. And this is how each project is developed. But also, visually, the work of art is not, the first sketches, the drawings, they are not ideal. They're schematic, and from there, the vision is crystallized through the permitting process.
Many of your projects seem so different. You cover things, and you also use oil barrels. Do you think that it all connects to a single impulse, or are these many different impulses that you're working with?
You know, the first, this project exactly, they're totally different things. This is why we like to do it. I say in the beginning, each project is totally new, unique experience. And the genesis of each project is different. I can tell you the genesis of Over the River, but it's not like the genesis for the gates or genesis for the surrounded island. But each of these projects, they are related to something very not precise, can be very vague, and very well described with the history of the Over the River. You know, in 1985, we was wrapping the Pont Neuf in Paris. Finally, we have a permission, and the wrapping was a very intricate process designed by our engineers, because we need to wrap the towers of the pont. Pont Neuf is the oldest bridge in Paris, 440 years old bridge in Paris, who is designed with these huge 12 arches, vault, and very big towers in the water. We wrapped the towers, we wrapped even the walkways, but it was very important also to wrap the vaults of the bridge, with a huge vaults, all different. And our engineers designed the fabric, especially sewn and connecting the ropes. And the fabric was put on the flat in the barge with a tugboat put under the bridge, in the arch of the bridge. And the rock climbers from the French Alps, the Chamonix, was elevating the fabric from the platform on the barge up there with pulley systems. And of course, the fabric was start flat, going up, like that. And some moment, the fabric was on the way of River Seine, floating, suspended. And I remember, Jeanne-Claude, we saw that image of the fabric floating over the River Seine, and we never think about over the river. We're still going with the wrapping of the Pont Neuf. Only in 1992, Over the River was born.
It's my misfortune that I've never heard you before, but you sound exactly like I would have thought. It's wonderful. The question is, so much of your discussion, the way you explain your work, is about process, the fabric, the technicalities, the obstacles that you had to go through. And then the work is completed, and it's about the reception, the way it is received by the audience, experienced, and possibly something about the inherent, about what used to be. But you never say anything, they are use the word meaning. Is that because you want to attribute the meaning? Is the meaning conveyed through experience primarily?
Of course, this is a good question, but you know, you should understand, Jeanne-Claude always saying, she was much more forceful, saying, we do work of joy and beauty. It's linked to somewhere I'm coming. I was educated, I'm born in Bulgaria, lived in Bulgaria until the age of 21, educated Marxist, suffered from the communist regime, and I would do nothing except for beauty and art. And anything who have a meaning or other thing is simple propaganda. They're commercial propaganda, political propaganda, religious propaganda, and is the work, what is the work? Is the touch, is the work, the things, is the work. And that, what is meaning? Is meaning art. And art deal with aesthetics. What is aesthetics? Is color, proportion, visual arts, proportion, movement, relation, and needs to be educated or learn to enjoy that. I always say people who don't have sense of music can find Bach very monotonous. It's terrible, the same song, one again or one, but need to develop senses to enjoy that. And visual arts is exactly that. This is all this project, they carry this, they have many elements like the Reichstag still is the Reichstag, nobody can negate it, that is political. But that uplifting the things and dimension talk for himself. Actually, again, beautiful example, we were scared to death, not scared, the government of Germany was scared to death that the Reichstag will be used by the neo-Nazi groups for the protests and things like that. And during the first day of the wrapping of the Reichstag, there was the 1,000 plainclothes policemen in the public having to do that. And 14 days, there was no one political demonstration in the Reichstag. Jeanne-Claude always enjoyed the beauty disarm is there, is only look it, is there, that's all. Okay, in 50 years, we realized 22 projects, if we felt get permission for 37 projects. Some projects they refuse, if we don't like to do make them go ahead, and some projects they refuse, like the Reichstag or the Pont Neuf, the gates, and we still persistent to get the permission. But some projects we lost interest to love, but actually it's not 37 projects. It's a very funny story. There was 36 projects and one project not realized. In 1975, we tried to wrap the tallest monument of Christophe Columbus in Barcelona. We were very excited. It's huge when Christophe Columbus left Barcelona to discover America. And we tried to negotiate it with the mayor of Barcelona at that time, and he was saying no, and he was assassinated, but not by us. There was a new mayor in 1981. We started to negotiate with him again. He said also no, and he also was assassinated, but not him. And finally, there was the famous mayor, Pascual de Maragall, who bring the Olympic Games to Barcelona. And he wrote, that time there was no email, he sent us a telegram, please come to Barcelona to wrap the Christophe Columbus. Jean-Claude, we don't like to do it anymore. This is exactly, this is that.
Hello. Thank you so much for your presentation. One question I always have about your work is the temporary nature of it, and the fact that it has to be experienced means that only someone who's in that space, in that time, can experience it. But because of that, it doesn't reach a much larger audience. What do you think about that?
Cannot reach much larger audience. No, the temporal character is very strong in this project, aesthetical decision. For 1,000 years, the artists put in their work of art variety of quality. Stone and wood and bronze and fresco, they painted variety subject, religious, abstract, mythological, landscape, etc. There one quality, Jean-Claude was very much better explaining that me, quality is never really put in art. There are tenderness and love we have for something do not last. We have a love and tenderness for childhood because we know it will not last. We have that love and tenderness for our life. We know we don't last. This is why we like to give to our work of art like additional quality. This something will be gone forever. Once in a lifetime, never again. And that is we will never repeat this project. It will be stupid to do another gates around the world. They carry this uniqueness who created enormous urgency to be there. And this is why our project have different type of public that normal museums. The people like to be there because they will say, I was there, I saw it, it's happened there. And this is something irreplaceable. It cannot be substituted. Of course, there are drawings, sketches, film, photographs, but that unique moment also is historical, is the capture in particular time can never be repeated. For example, in some way, some project who was refused and not realized the time would like to be done, some way they benefit that they was happen later. For example, when we started to work on the Berlin project in 1971 during the Cold War, there was a lot of tension. The Soviet newspaper Pravda was writing that wrapping of the Reichstag is the imperialist, decadent art, etc. All these things. And if the Reichstag was wrapped during the Cold War, it would be like a footnote during that period. Fortunately, finally, the project was realized after when Germany was unified and carried completely different dimension. You know, all our project, the same things with the Central Park, all our project created this momentum of moment that their time of realization, even they refused before, is better in the long time. But the very end is also, each of our project is like a slice of our life. Often we return back to the site of our project. And in 2007, Jeanne-Claude and myself, we were on Australia looking Little Bay, where the project was realized, these huge cliffs, South Pacific Ocean, the surf and the sharks down there. I remember dislocated my shoulder sleeping in one of these boulders to do the wrapping. And Jean-Claude was looking. We were probably totally nuts to try to wrap that with so much fabric and ropes, but we were younger and we did it.
Why then is the Mastaba going to be the only work of art that you will want to create that is not going to be taken off again?
No, first, it's not true that it's not only. I did many projects, many sculptures exist. I showed the color slides of the sculpture in Holland and the original works, another museum there. Certainly, many, many works exist physically. But Mastaba have this quality I would like to realize to stay. And tradition of all other works I did for so many years.
Well, certainly, we would like to see the Mastaba here and be able to see it whenever we want to.
Thank you, thank you.
I would just like to know, typically in Barcelona, for example, why would they refuse for you to do the work? What arguments would they use, especially if it's something temporary?
Historically, all the refusal is that is people who they elected, like the mayor of Barcelona, politically, they are very nervous to do something like that. They will be ridiculed or they will be criticized by the public who elect them, and a variety of other things. You know, this is we have the most difficult part of our project is to convince the politicians or responsible people that to say no is more dangerous than to say yes. And this is our work to convince the decision maker that to say yes, at least equal chance that to say no. And that is the very delicate balance. It's very easy to say no very fast, but that process of convincing, process to argue is unpredictable. It cannot be invented. It's very slow, and many times we fail. We have a wrong advice. We approach wrong way the people. There are hundred elements, not simple decision like that.
And still today, it's so difficult, or it gets easier and easier as you get?
Not at all. No, I can tell you. You ask now the question, you bear for the moment. Now, Jean-Claude and myself, we're not masochists. We love to have the things better, less complicated. And when we start to work in the project of Over the River Permission, we discover who is a landowner. Now, very strange things. It's little history of the United States. You know, the United States owns this 20% of the surface of the United States. One of the greatest, no other nation owns so much real estate, like citizen in the United States. And they have this Ministry of Interior, who is the Department of Interior, in charge with that incredibly lucrative ministry because involves so much mining, oil company, all these things. And there was no regulation how the land would be rented until 1969. Curiously enough, a conservative president of the United States, Richard Nixon, signed National Environmental Policy Act. It's a huge law who articulate all the conditions how the land belonged to the nation will be rented, sometimes even sell. And that is required that all these entities who try to rent or use this land belong to the nation go to the incredible study called Environmental Impact Statement. This is a huge book. It's mentioned all kind of things. They know one single word about art. In the first time in the history of federal government in the United States, the work of art have environmental impact statement. It's an enormous study. The federal government hired specialized company of engineers, traffic engineers, garbage engineers, environmentalists, wildlife specialists to study the project intensively. We pay the bills. We cannot talk to them because that will conflict. And the federal government actually will pay every minute that federal officer called to us, worked to us, like a lawyer. He looked at the watch, how many minutes to talk with us, he charges. And of course, we spent already $11 million on over the river on preparing that permission of the project. And it was very difficult through all this process. We start well with the Clinton administration. We have a terrible time with the Bush administration. It's very complicated. And finally, with Obama administration, we have a more understanding. And finally, historically, we get the permission just a week ago.
So far, we've been talking about your art, I mean, your project, you know,
How we document it.
The finished project, you know, the Reichstag. But all these have been made possible through the years through the production of other specific work of arts, which are your drawings. Yeah. They're sold and made your project possible. This is an important point, I think. How is your personal relation to that specific work of art of yours? I mean, it's just, are your drawings just a mean, you know, a way to get your project done?
Look,
or?
First things, you know, I love to draw, you know, and the drawings themselves, they have their independent value. They are drawings that you hang on the wall. They have a quality of drawings. There are some scale models. This is all preparatory study. But early works like the package or the barrels, they are sculptured themselves. They have their own value. They're independent of the project, etc. But the drawings, also their gear for something will become real. And this is why the variety of drawings reflect the crystallization of how the project will look. The first drawings, they were clumsier, more schematic, and vision is crystallized to many things by working with the engineers, doing the life science tests, all these things, and they reflect how the project developed. And they have separate themselves, but also they're links that they're to something to be realized. And I love to draw. You see, in my studio, I draw all the time when I'm not working with the engineer on the side. Yes.
I wonder if you're very advanced with the engineering of the Mastaba. When I looked at the drawing, I thought that thing would collapse under its own weight, each wall.
How the engineering of Mastaba is done? I allowed to say? Okay. But it's not. It cannot be. Yeah. Okay. You know, the project developed on many stages. It's very complex work of engineering. Myself and Jeanne-Claude, we're not engineers. Not only for the Mastaba, for all the project. We have a great engineers, all kind of specialists involving maker, fabric, woven, all kind of things. We love them. They work with us for a long time. And the early years of Mastaba was engineered by our dear friend, who is not anymore alive, Mr. Dorothy. You remember Birch? Ted Dorothy, dear Birch is here. Birch. Ted Dorothy was there, but was loosely engineered, not precisely. There was some idea. And when the project go ahead more and more, Jeanne-Claude and myself, we decided that we need to have a more in-depth, actually, on how the project should be built. By the way, to tell you, all these projects, they're copyright and trademarks, even in Abu Dhabi. They're already all that. And of course, in 2006, in the world is a big book called Shanghai Codex, where it classified 1 to 500 the greatest engineering school university in the world. We hired the services of the 4 engineering schools. One is the Federal Institute of Technology in Zurich, the professor and their assistants. We hired the services of Engineering School, University of Cambridge, UK. We hired the services of Engineering School of University of Illinois, Champaign, and we had the services of Engineering School of Hosei University in Tokyo. all these professors of engineering with their assistant do not know each other. They don't know anything, what's other things. And they work for 2 years preparing the feasibility study for the Mastaba, how much we cost, how it will be built, how it will be fabricated, how long time, many, many, many things. And we own these services, and we know how the project will be built by minutes. The most exciting proposal how to build project is the Japanese Professor Sasaki. Actually, the project will be built and elevated, actually built a long time, but elevated in less than a week.
I have a couple of minor questions. First, do you know more or less how much of your time you spare on leading with bureaucracy compared to the time you need to build your projects? And second, regarding the Mastaba project, considering the oil prices, the current oil price, I imagine that you will build the project with empty barrels.
Yeah. You know, the second question, the barrels, you know, the barrels, they're normal barrels, but they're fabricated for us. They will fabricate it for us, especially actually the factory will be at the site, fabricate the barrels. The colors is not normal. Colors is the best colors in the world, done by BASF, the same company who did the color for Mercedes-Benz and BMW, but better. And they know how all that process will be done for the site. They especially, actually each barrel is like a mosaic. They are specially designed, specially attached. It's like they're not full of barrels. This is like a wall of mosaic, very much like mosaic. Now, how much spend I time on bureaucracy? It's not really bureaucracy. It's the, how to explain it? All our projects have two distinct periods, the software period and the hardware period. The software period is when the project do not exist. Exists only in the mind of 1,000 people who try to help me and the mind of 1,000 people who try to stop us. Now, all that is that period that exists only in drawings, the proposition, but people is impossible to duplicate because each project is unique. They know something, you tell I did that and do the same thing. And to that project, and this is the main reason we do not do commission, to that project, the work of art developed here on identity. The permitting process build the power of the project. All this create anticipation, expectation, how awful we look, or how beautiful we look, all create dynamic that public who usually do not exist in normal art. Art, you need to go to see the painting and the sculpture before like or dislike. But that is an advance before the work of art physically exists. And that is really how fit. This is the process of software, and finally, when we get the permission, we're in a hardware period, when we have the real dimension. So many kilometers of cables, actually for the over the river, we need to buy 56 kilometers of cables, all the things, and the real wind, the real sun, the water, all that thing, and they match together. But this is how, it's not bureaucracy. I always feel the bureaucracy is the part of exciting of the project. And I can tell you another great example. You know, how the decision on one work of art is done. Taking the case of the Reichstag project. The Reichstag building was owned by the nation of Germany, and the Speaker of the House can sign permission, or he is landlord of the house. But we have a big obstacle. The Prime Minister of Germany, the Chancellor of Germany, was dead against the project, very powerful politician, Mr. Helmut Kohl. Mr. Helmut Kohl insists that the project will go to more and more high level, and by his insistence, Mr. Kohl moved the decision, existence of the work of art on a full debate in the nation, 70 minutes debate, and the speech of the majority party, Christian Democratic Party, given 17 minutes by the leader of the Christian Democratic Party, who today is the Minister of Finance of Germany, Mr. Schauble. After this 70 minutes televised, over 200 million spectators in the European Union, we defeated the Chancellor of Germany, Helmut Kohl. Now, all that without knowing, Mr. Kohl elevated the permitting process on a so high level that the work of art benefit in some way because is that friction. But that is happened only because the work developed her own identity through the permitting process. And this is something you cannot invent. He cannot organize. He's the real energy of the work.
My question is about the colors. How do you choose the colors?
The colors.
Yeah.
In the beginning, all our projects who have colors start with very simple, not described colors. Like a Valley Curtain with the first drawings was white color, and also the Reichstag, they're very simple. The color, we're always very attentive on the color, is developing through the knowing more the site and how the site develop, know about the light and everything. But probably a great example is the Umbrellas project. The Umbrellas project was like a diptych. In the classical art, you have two paintings together. They make one work of art. And Umbrellas project is like that. There was two works of art simultaneously in the two richest countries in the world with a lot of similarity, a lot of differences. And the color was part of that diptych, and the project was involving inland valley in Japan and California, and in the southern California, during the summertime, the sun burned the grass became blown, and that very dry, with no water landscape, we choose yellow. Where in Japan, during the summertime, it's pouring, raining, you have much so moisture and water, and that very deep green landscape of evergreen on the light green of bamboo forest, we choose blue. Blue wet, yellow dry. But of course, we cannot decide that in the studio. We build life-size umbrellas in Japan and California, different hue of blue, different hue of yellow. We put them, we go far away, photograph them, we look them far away, closer, and finally we have the right blue and bright yellow.
Can you please tell us about the financing of your projects? You mentioned that through your artwork and the sale of your artwork, but there are tremendous costs that you incur with these projects. How much do the cities participate, and what other sources of funding do you have?
How much percent? How do you pay for the project? Okay, simply. I try to explain very much. Probably I talk too fast. You know, I do original works of art with my own hands. They're all done. I do not have assistants. Even small sketches to large drawings. And this commodity, I talk like Marxist capitalist, this commodity have value. That value is established by the market, auction houses, etc. And we sell these things and to collectors who collect art, to dealers who resell art, and to museums, and they buy the works, and we receive the money. Jeanne-Claude was saying, it's our money, we can spend it the way we like to spend it. We can, for example, we live in a building built in the 19th century, we don't have elevator, 90 steps I climb several times a day, but instead to have an elevator, we pay for the workers and project. Now, all these projects, they complexly work out. They cost, in the beginning, very little, because only small number of people working, but the project advance evolved more and more. We tried, myself and Jean-Claude, now my assistants, we try to be very lean industry to try to save money, to control, but it's very difficult, but we're doing. But and also we work with banks. You know, we're the biggest collector of our works. Our curator, Josie Kraft, is here. We work with banks who we have a line of credit standby. You know, in art world, the collectors, the dealers, and museums, they're notoriously slow payers. On Friday afternoon, I cannot say to our workers, I cannot pay you because Mr. Smith, who bought, don't pay yet. This is why when the project goes ahead, we have a standby line of credit, and we can be secure that we have funds to pay our workers.
I would like to ask a personal question, if I may.
Yeah, we can have personal questions.
Okay. Most of your environmental art is credited to you and your wife. So I would like to know how you live as a couple, how it is to be with a wife and a business partner at the same time, and also how is it like after she passed away? How has your workflow been affected?
Their film, actually, the movie maker who did that film is right here, Antonio Ferrara, that you have the film probably. And their film for memorial of Jean-Claude, Antonio put very good film. Huh? On the web, okay, you can see it on the website, ChristoJeanClaude.net. It's called, the film is called Nomad of Art. And that film you can see how was our participation worked together. You know, the film done on our work is done by the greatest, before Antonio came, he was a baby, one of the greatest American documentary movie maker, Albert and David Maysles. We met in 1961 in Paris, and Albert and David Maysles became like brothers to us, and they did many films on our works, Valley Curtain, Running Winds, the Pont Neuf, the umbrellas, the gates, the islands, and that films is really making of the project. It's not like a normal art film when you have narration. Everything is real voice, and you can see very much how we work, Jean-Claude and myself. There are a lot of screaming between each other, almost insulting, you idiot, things like that. Anyway, she was an extremely critical person. I miss so much that. She was very argumentative. Absolutely. She never left anything to be questioned. Why that? Not why that? Etc. like that. And of course, something is impossible. And all the time, from the studio, I go down to our office when the two young men work. And I always, they ask me, now we make decision, we try to see what Jean-Claude will say. And all the office is full of her writings. Like that.
First of all, thank you so much for coming to speak to us. It's been truly enjoyable having you here. Big fan of yours. Just a simple question, actually. In all of the actual installations that you produced over the years, has there been any unintended consequences, or maybe like a happy accident, something that was a surprise to you that wasn't intended in your original concept?
I always say, they're impossible to make prevision how the project will look. You know, dynamics of the cloth is so enormous that, for example, was no way even with this life-size stage to recognize how the things will be affected. And there was the difficulty to visualize in the paper, difficulty to see it, and all the time there was the total awe of how the work do. For example, the one thing we were never sure with the running fence in Northern California, how we move with the wind. You know, the fence, the fabric panels was hanging vertically. There was the 20 meter between each pole, and they was running for 40 kilometers. And one thing we never expected to see that enormous energy of the fabric from one panel to another panel vertically. And also we're not expecting the luminosity or the light conductor of the nylon fabric and that. And only can be seen in the film and the photography. And the drawings and the sketches, there was no way to see that.
You have a tremendous sense of humor. You're very funny. I'm thinking about something that you said earlier about how you wish to keep your life less complicated, but it seems like everything you've done is amazingly difficult, all your projects and so forth. And I just wonder, why don't you just paint? I mean, just the sheer magnitude of your work is astounding. Unbelievable.
No, I am enjoying, probably I'm masochist, probably I'm enjoying that complication.
My brother is an artist, and I have a very, very good friend of mine who's an artist and a teacher, and she says to her students that the matter of the success of you being an artist is not so much in you capturing the aesthetic, but the degree to which you are able to produce. Just to be able to produce. That is the matter of, or the measure of your success. I wanted you to comment on that. And
produce, meaning what? Produce? I don't understand.
To produce art.
To make art.
To make art over and over and over again.
Make art.
That is the measure of success. That's what she tells her students. I was wondering if you comment on that.
But you know, you can make art. The work myself and Jean-Claude we do for ourselves. But you can do art in a very simple way. One of the greatest painters of 20th century, Morandi, painted only bottles and glasses and canvas, small like that, but he made great art. You know, the artist can do many, many things. Then not to do big things, but only myself, Jean-Claude, we like to do these things. And this is the why you should see art is the work we do for us, for ourselves, and this is how we exist. But art is so multiple way to be done. There are no rules how art to be done.
And just the one final thing I was wondering is, how do you deal with criticism?
Criticism, of course, is the criticism is not good because sometimes it's devastating, but we live with that. It's part of the art life, not for any artist.
Sorry. You mentioned taking down your projects at the end and recycling your materials.
Yes.
I wondered what one did with miles and miles and miles of polyester cloth or oversized umbrellas.
Okay, this is the, you understand, we're buying industrial textile. I don't know if you say that, I don't say. It's not clothing textile. Industrial, you say that question? Yeah, sorry, say. Industrial textile. But we also buy a lot of hardware, all kind of materials, the steel. For example, for the Gates project, we bought 5,000 tons of steel. You don't know what is 5,000 tons steel. It's two-thirds of the steel of Eiffel Tower. Now, when we buying this material, which is very valuable industrial material, we already work with company to buy back. They buy back the material, the aluminum, the fabric, variety of purposes. They are not used for another art project. They use, I remember vividly that we bought the steel, and steel was resold to that company, and Chinese need so much steel that time, they bought it. You know, this is very common sense, not something special. This is common sense when you buy goods, they're exhibited only for 14 days. It's naturally, if they have value, they can be reused. And it's never be complicated. It's all we try to find a company who willing, or specialized company who buy this recycling hardware material.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.